13 Pro Bowls, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 198 career sacks. These aren't just impressive numbers, they're the mark of a legend. But even these stats don't do justice to the impact Reggie White had on the NFL. He wasn't just a great player, he was a game changer. In this video, we're going to take you beyond the numbers. We'll show you how Reggie White's dominance forced the defenses to evolve, how his presence on the field made quarterbacks nervous and offensive coordinators lose sleep. By the time we're done, you'll understand why Reggie White wasn't just the most dominant defensive player in NFL history. He was a force that reshaped the game itself. Picture this, September 13, 1985, Veterans Stadium, Philadelphia. The Eagles are taking on the New York Giants in their season opener. A rookie defensive end steps onto the field and nobody knows it yet, but the NFL is about to change forever. That rookie's name, Reggie White. In his NFL debut, White made an immediate impact, dominating the Giants' offensive line in just 13 plays. The legend of Reggie White was born that day. White's journey to the NFL wasn't conventional. After setting school records at the University of Tennessee, he spent 2 years in the USFL with the Memphis Showboats. There, he earned all USFL honors both seasons and caught the attention of NFL teams. When White joined the Eagles, he quickly proved his worth. From day one, he was a force of nature on the Eagles' defense. His presence transformed the entire unit. In 1984, the year before White arrived, the Eagles ranked 17th in total defense. By 1991, with White leading the charge, they were the #1 defense in the NFL. White wasn't just a great player, he made everyone around him better. What made White so unstoppable? It was his signature hump move. He'd engage an offensive lineman, get his hands inside their pads, and then use his incredible upper body strength to throw the lineman to the side. It was like watching a bull toss a matador. The hump move was devastating. Offensive linemen knew it was coming, but they still couldn't stop it. It was like trying to brace yourself against a freight train. One moment you're setting your stance, the next you're watching White blow by you on his way to the quarterback. As White steamrolled through offensive lines, a quiet revolution was brewing in NFL war rooms. What happens when one player is so dominant that the entire league has to change its approach? The story of how Reggie White forced offenses to evolve is a testament to his unparalleled impact on the game. Before Reggie White, offensive strategies in the NFL were pretty straightforward. You had your quarterback, your running backs, and your receivers. The offensive line was expected to handle defensive linemen one-on-one. It was simple, and it worked. But then White showed up, and suddenly everything changed. Offensive coordinators were losing sleep trying to figure out how to stop this guy. Teams would go into games with elaborate plans to contain White, but he'd still dominate. White's presence forced teams to completely rethink their blocking strategies. They started doubling up on him with tackles and guards, bringing in tight ends and running backs for extra help, and using chip blocks more frequently. The stats showed a dramatic increase in double teams and extra blockers after White's arrival. It was like the whole league was saying, we need all hands on deck to stop this guy. But White's impact went beyond just blocking strategies. Offensive coordinators had to redesign their entire approach. They implemented quicker releases for quarterbacks, more 3-step drops, and increased use of screenplays. All these changes were aimed at getting the ball out fast and keeping the quarterback from getting flattened by White. White's dominance affected the whole rhythm of the offense. Quarterbacks were always on edge, never quite comfortable in the pocket. Running backs had to stay in to block more often, limiting options in the passing game. It was like White was dictating the terms of the game even when he wasn't making a tackle. And here's the thing, these changes weren't just for when teams played against the Eagles. White's dominance forced offenses to evolve across the board. Teams had to be ready for that kind of defensive pressure every week because you never knew when the next Reggie White might show up. While the rest of the league was playing catch-up, one coach had a plan that would make even the almighty take notice. How far would Mike Holmgren go to land the NFL's most feared defender? The story of Reggie White's move to Green Bay had an impact that was all too real. Mike Holmgren, the Packers head coach, left a voicemail for White pretending to be God, telling him to play in Green Bay. It was a bold move, but when you're trying to sign the most dominant defensive player in the league, you pull out all the stops. Before White arrived, the Packers defense ranked 22nd in the NFL in points allowed. That's not exactly the kind of stat that gets you to the Super Bowl. But Holmgren had a vision, and White was the centerpiece. Now, there were plenty of folks who thought White was crazy for choosing Green Bay. We're talking about a small market team that hadn't won a championship in nearly 30 years. Some people figured White was just cashing in for one last big payday before retirement, but those people didn't know Reggie White. From the moment White stepped onto Lambeau Field, everything changed. His play was phenomenal, but it was his presence and leadership that truly transformed the team. He brought a winning mentality to a group that had almost forgotten what winning felt like. Teammates said he elevated everyone's game, pushing them to be better every single day. The numbers tell the story. In just 3 years, the Packers' defense went from 22nd to 1st in the NFL, allowing only 13.1 points per game in 1996. This improvement wasn't a fluke. The Packers' defense remained one of the league's best throughout White's tenure. White's impact went beyond just the stats. He changed the culture of the team. Suddenly, the Packers weren't just hoping to win, they expected to win, and win they did. With White anchoring the defense, the Packers became a force to be reckoned with, making it to 2 straight Super Bowls. In Super Bowl 31 against the New England Patriots, White put on a show for the ages. He set a Super Bowl record with 3 sacks, 2 of which came in the fourth quarter on consecutive plays against Drew Bledsoe. These crucial plays helped seal the game for the Packers and showcased White's ability to dominate when it mattered most. White's performance in that game didn't just win the Packers a championship, it cemented his legacy as one of the greatest to ever play the game. He proved that he could deliver on the biggest stage in football, forever changing the fortunes of the Green Bay Packers. Reggie White's Super Bowl performance was impressive, but his impact on the game went far beyond that single event. The NFL Network ranked White as the 7th greatest player of all time across all positions, outranking most quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. This ranking speaks volumes about his influence on the sport. White's career might have ended, but his influence continues to shape the game. He left a playbook for future generations, and his impact extends beyond simple statistics like sacks or tackles. Aaron Donald, one of the most dominant defensive players in the league, looks up to White. Donald's explosive quickness off the line and ability to blow past offensive linemen mirror White's style, showcasing how White's techniques continue to inspire top players. Coaches still use White's methods as a blueprint for developing defensive linemen, teaching that combination of power and finesse that made him unstoppable. White's influence extends to the entire defensive line position. He brought a new level of athleticism, changing how we think about defensive ends. Now, you see players who can drop back into coverage and move along the line, a direct result of White's innovative approach. The training of defensive linemen has also evolved due to White's influence. There's now a greater emphasis on footwork and hand placement, techniques that White perfected during his career. He set a new standard that players and coaches continue to strive for. White's legacy also includes a shift in how we perceive defensive players. He demonstrated that defense could be just as game-changing as offense, proving that a defensive player could dominate a game and become the star everyone talks about after the game. When we consider White's lasting impact, we are looking at a fundamental change in how football is played and understood. He didn't just excel within the system, he transformed it, leaving an indelible mark on the sport that continues to influence players, coaches, and fans today. Reggie White was a true game changer in the NFL. He transformed how defensive linemen played and forced offenses to completely rethink their strategies. His impact is still felt today in the way defensive players approach the game and train. If you want to see what made White so special, check out some of his career highlights. You'll quickly understand why he earned the nickname Minister of Defense. White's legacy goes beyond his impressive stats. He changed the very fabric of professional football. His combination of skill, strength, and leadership set a new standard for defensive players, influencing generations to come. To stay updated with our latest content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.